The next chapter with Prim Siripipat is a production of iHeartRadio. Hey everybody, it's Prim. Welcome to The Next Chapter presented by Baron Davis and Slick Studios. This week's guest is former Duke and NBA player Gerald Henderson Jr. Yes, a fellow Blue Devil once again. As a child, Gerald was a multi-sport athlete, and by the time he was in high school, he had become a McDonald's All-American in basketball, a scratch golfer by 13 or 14 years old, and also as a track and field athlete, he was a two-time league champion in the high jump and triple jump. None of this is really surprising considering his father, Gerald Henderson Sr., was a phenomenal basketball player himself as a three-time NBA champion. Now, after high school, Gerald attended Duke University on a full ride where he'd play for 3 years before he left for the pros. He was drafted 12th overall by the then Charlotte Bobcats and had a pretty long career considering just how many injuries he endured over the course of his 8-year NBA career. But after 6 surgeries, including a few hip operations and a torn Achilles towards the end, Gerald, understandably, decided to hang it up and move on to the next chapter of his life. And since retiring, he's done a lot. He returned to Duke to complete his undergraduate studies, earning a degree in psychology and a markets and management certificate. He also started his own real estate company with his wife, Nilu, called Henderson Ventures, which he was really excited about. And he's also continued to do a lot of broadcasting work as a color commentator and basketball analyst for various networks, including ESPN, where he and I got to work together. We recorded this interview back in 2019, really only a few months after Gerald decided to retire from basketball. And I flew down to North Carolina to do this in person, which always makes for a better interview. And because our conversation went for so long, nearly 2 hours, we decided to split this up into 2 parts. And in this first part, we talk about how Gerald has been just adjusting to the retired athlete life and all the events that led up to his decision to finally walk away from basketball, including the day he just had, as he called it, a moment of clarity, as he thought, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So here we are in Charlotte, North Carolina, at a golf course talking about Gerald's golf game, since that seems to be a pretty significant part of this new chapter in his life. Welcome to the show, Gerald.
We're
like an hour into the conversation anyway, so.
You know what? I don't stay up late unless there's something I gotta watch on TV.
Yeah.
I don't have any desire to stay up late. Like I want to go to sleep. So sometimes I'll be in bed by 9 o'clock because the girls go to sleep. They're to sleep by 8.
Right.
So, you know, once I take a shower, maybe like make sure I send all the emails and text messages back from the day, I'm in the bed. I don't care to stay up. So if I wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock, I've got 7 hours
Well,
of sleep.
there's a lot of people that might go to bed early, but they don't get up that early. I'm an early riser.
I can't sleep for 9 hours straight. 8, 9 hours. I can't.
Oh, for real?
Can't do it. It's hard for me to get 7.
Well, when you were playing, how did you?
I could do a day. Oh yeah, I could take naps.
Okay, so you're a solid napper.
Yeah, I
you're
used to take
You're like
naps.
a 7-month-old baby. You like you like your 2 naps.
When I was playing, like you jotted down as part of my day. I'm going to take a nap.
How long do you take a nap for?
I could take a nap. Now I can't take them as long, but I could take a 2-3 hour nap easily. I mean, that's like half.
But you just can't go straight for 7-8 hours.
8 hours is tough.
Wow.
8 hours is tough, but I can get to sleep. It's just like if I'll wake up at like 3-4 o'clock and then I can't go back to sleep.
It was funny. I don't know how I knew. I mean, obviously, you and I are here in person. We're at the Valentine Golf Club, one of your spots. It's apparently the place to go here in Charlotte. But
I knew that you were going to show up in golf gear, and I was like, I don't know if I should come in a polo shirt. Polo shirt is not really my thing unless I'm playing. But you come up and you're like strutting the latest and greatest golf gear because you were already on the driving range at what, 7?
I was on the driving range at 7. I love to play. I mean, I'm done playing, so I'm done playing basketball.
Yeah.
So, I've played golf my whole life, so it's something that, it's not an easy game, but it comes easier for me because I've played it for so long. So, and I want to get better, so I just go practice, play.
Why is that the sport that, and I'm not trying to be sexist when I say this, but why is this the sport that men typically gravitate towards? And it's not just former athletes. It's just retired men or even working men in general. My dad, I was telling you, we used to be a tennis family. And for whatever reason, over the past 10 years, as I started to, finish up my career, he just started picking up golf. And now he is obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Obsessed. He will be sitting there, and when I call him, he doesn't care about me. He certainly doesn't want to ask about, he'll ask about my son, Duke. And,
how are you doing?
Yeah, there's no, how are you doing? It's like, Prim, I went to the course today, and he's like, my short game.
Right.
It's good. What is it about golf?
Well, as you get older, and I'm 31, I wouldn't be considered old.
No.
But, if you played sports your whole life, I've been beaten up a lot by sports, tons of surgeries, injuries. Golf's a sport. It's so much easier on your body. I mean, most golfers will tell you their back hurts or something, but other than that, you're pretty good. It's slower pace. You can go out there with a group of 4 and still talk the same junk that you would on a basketball court or anywhere else. You're outdoors. If you like being outdoors, there's nothing better than a nice looking golf course to be out there for 4 hours or so to look at. There's a game in it that's just it's fun. If you're a good golfer or a bad golfer, you can go out there with other bad golfers and do handicaps and stuff.
That's true.
Even the playing field. Basketball, you can't even the playing field, right? So
no.
If somebody
watching a pickup game between a bunch of retired guys, and I'm not talking about your type of level, but I kind of find it's the 40 to 50-year-old men who ended the career in high school, and then they played so hard and so competitive. They're the dudes that are trying to take a guy's knee out.
Right. I mean, you got guys from that era where physicality was like a whole nother level. So,
or is it just because they have a chip on their shoulder? Is it really that?
Probably they can't perform like they did in the past. So their tempers or their competitiveness per se.
Are you trying to be polite?
I am.
You are trying to be polite. I'm going to work. I'm going to give it some time.
So I do TV. I do TV too, Prim. So knowing the right things to say. Being politically correct or something I've become used to. But, I mean...
We're not PC on this show.
Okay, so it's one of those shows.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Don't keep it PC.
Well, either way, when you're 40 or 50, you can't play basketball like you used to. It's just what it's going to be. I'll tell you, you will not see me on a basketball court when I'm 40, 50 years old. You'll see me on a golf course all day. Because it still brings this competitiveness out of at least me, to a high level. And it's fun, and I don't have to, worry about after the game, icing down for a whole hour.
Sit in the ice up for 2 hours.
I mean, it's a way more fun, easy game to play. And I love it.
We wouldn't see you on the basketball court because you got to play for so long afterwards. It might not have been as long as you wanted it to be, but it was the better part of a decade. So,
sure.
I mean, that's kind of why you're not going to be out on the basketball court.
I mean, basketball is a sport I still love to this day. If physically I felt like I could continue to do it and wasn't risking my health, I'd be out there for sure. But that's just not how it worked out for me. And to say, I played high school basketball, one of the best schools at Episcopal Academy in Philadelphia, under a Hall of Fame coach and Dan Doherty, and then was able to play under another Hall of Fame coach at a prestigious basketball and just university like Duke University, which you went to too. You know exactly what it's like. In that kind of atmosphere, in the bright lights, national TV games all the time. And then go to the NBA and play for 8 years and for a few different teams. It's a blessing. A lot of people aren't going to be able to do that in their lifetime. And so I just feel blessed to be able to do that for as long as I did, and really, really enjoyed it. And thank God every day for it. But, now it's at the point where that's no longer what I'm doing every day. And, you just move on to different things.
It seems like you're in a good place, but I know from my own personal journey, and also in a lot of my friends and colleagues being athletes, sometimes what's on the surface is not necessarily what's going on deep inside. I also know from my own journey that on the surface, you could also be moving along and preparing for the next chapter and well into the next career of your life. But some things are still not resolved. You know what I mean? Like, you could still logistically make things work and take the turn, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be emotionally easy.
Sure.
And, just several minutes ago, you said, I'm retired from.
Right.
And when I was just perusing some of the articles and stuff out there, I've only found like one article. I think it was with Close 360 that did something on your retirement. Because you never really, I don't think, publicly came out and said it, right?
Other than that, I just, to me, it was, I had spent 2 years rehabbing from hip surgery and from my third hip surgery, and then spent another year to this point, a little over a year now, recovering from Achilles surgery. So, not that I had been retired during that time because I was trying to come back and play, but even before then, when I was getting tons of hip pain, I always saw retirement as a possibility. And though it's not what I wanted, I'm very faith-based. So, like, to me, my plan is never really. It's a great plan. You can set goals for yourself and what you want to do, but God's plan is completely different to me. Anybody that believes in God understands that. Is like, you go with the flow. You can have all the plans you want in the world, but in the end of the day, it's already written down for what's going to happen, and you got to be okay with that. And so. I didn't make a huge announcement about it. I did the thing with 360, and it turned out really well. But, I'm never a huge guy I would never want to bring a whole bunch of attention to myself anyways. Like, I'm just kind of, if it's
low key.
I'm very low key, and you've been around me. I'm not going to sit there and try to, make this huge farewell tour about my retirement. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure some would care, some wouldn't, but, it doesn't matter as much. To me, it's about what you're going to do going forward. And so, for me, I'm just moving on.
It is interesting that I think for college athletes, you just retire and that's it. You don't really have to worry about a press conference. But for a lot of other athletes like yourself and other who are on a much bigger platform, especially do basketball, and then you win it, played at the professional level, then you're kind of forced with the decision of like, do I make this a public thing?
Right.
Because if I don't, then you kind of have to explain bit by bit to every single person that comes your way. Or should I just rip off the Band-Aid, kind of like what Andrew Luck did? I mean, he kind of had to because a lot of people were expecting him to continue playing.
Right. But
it's almost like, do I just rip off the Band-Aid, make the announcement, and then people are just going to leave me alone?
Right.
Like, did you think about that?
I made the announcement just like on Instagram, I didn't do anything really else. So anybody who doesn't follow me on Instagram and pay attention wouldn't know that I'm retired.
Mm-hmm.
And so every day, people still ask me, like, where are you playing now? And not golf. They ask me, like, where are you hooping? I'm like, man, I just retired 3-4 months ago.
Golf club.
It's like, I'm here. This is where I play.
Yeah.
But no, it's something I got to answer 20 times a week, because
Does that get annoying? Or do you?
It's not as annoying because I know people wouldn't know otherwise, So, and it's flattering that somebody who's interested in what I'm doing now. So I don't take, it's not annoying. I'm happy to tell people what I'm up to, and I'm sure after some time, the more and more they see me out on the golf course and not on TV, then they'll understand what I'm doing now.
Or you'll be on TV.
Right.
You just won't be
right
on the court.
There you go.
So are you going to be doing stuff for Charlotte this year?
Yeah.
Again?
So I'm working for Fox Sports Southeast and covering the Hornets games. I'll probably do close to 70 games this year. I'll do all the home games and a bunch of road games. And I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed it last year, my first year doing it, and learned a lot. TV's a lot. It's not like
you're in the thick of it now,
right? You're not on the other side where you can just answer questions and like I'm doing now. Right?
Yeah. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer calling the game and being the interviewer, or do you want to be the interviewee?
Well, being the interviewee is so much easier, right? But with being, I do the pre and post game show, so there's some prep work you got to do for it. But I like it because it's challenging, right? It's puts you a little out of your comfort zone, especially for me. Last year, doing it as my first year, they threw me right into the fire, right? And I had to learn along the way. The microphone, the earpiece, talking in your ear, learning when you mess up, like just keep going. You can't stop. It's live TV. All those things that you just you just pick up on, you just learn. And it was a challenge for me, but I thought I did pretty good at it. I got some good compliments from people that watch. So I'm looking forward to doing it this year too.
That's exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's the whole reason why I got into sports broadcasting, and maybe that's just why it's an easy transition for athletes, because I was, once I retired from tennis after college, I was desperately looking for something that was going to replace that adrenaline rush of when you compete. And I just thought, did you ever know Dr. Frank Bassett, or did he pass before? Do you remember him?
Did he have a dorm at Duke? Because I stayed in Bassett's dorm.
I don't know if that's his dorm. I don't know that. But so Dr. Frank Bassett was a renowned orthopedic surgeon at Duke. And he eventually retired, but taught a class, Anatomy of the Lower Extremities. It was a BAA class. And he might have passed by the time you were there. But so I took his class, and he loved athletes. Mm-hmm. So he was one of those professors. So I was like, when you get to Duke, I was like, oh, Dr. Bassett, he loves athletes. Got to take that class. And I was like thinking for a minute about going pre-med, and then I realized I wasn't smart enough. So I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But in his class, he would work on real cadavers. So it was like half of a leg, and you would actually work on cadavers. So I know one of your hits. Now I'm totally going on a digression. I'll get back on track. But anyways, he was the one that was like, hey, you should think about getting into television. But I figured that if I wasn't going to be an athlete, and if I wasn't going to play games or matches anymore, at least I could be around athletes. Does it feel like a seamless transition? Because you do kind of get thrown into the fire a little bit. Yeah. When we were at ESPN, you got thrown into the fire doing NBA Tonight too.
I did. That was like one of my first TV things.
I think that was your first night. That's when we first really... I can't remember if we had met before. We obviously knew of each other. Yes. But that was our first time really working together and spending time with each other.
That was cool because that was really thrown into the fire because I had no experience.
Idea. No one. as we started this conversation that night, and one of your first questions was like, "What is this?" And I was talking about the rundown.
Right.
I immediately realized I was like, "Oh,
yeah, he doesn't
prep him."
Right.
So I was like, "That's happened to me before." So I wanted to extend the courtesy of like, "Okay, let's this is a VO, this is a stop." Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they really threw you into the fire.
Yeah, no, and I liked it. Shoot, like
you did great. You did amazing.
Thank you. And it was tough. You gotta. I really like watching other people, like watching what you do. Or we were working with Antonio Davis. I remember.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
He was giving me pointers and stuff. But really, what I've learned most is that there's people watching and stuff, but the more simple that you keep it, if you don't have to hit people with 100 stats at a time. If you give them one stat and explain that one stat, how it has to do with the game or whoever you're covering, if you do that well and just keep it simple, that you look the best doing it that way, as opposed to trying to overshoot yourself. So. But that was fun. That was my first little taste of it, and I liked it. So I had my agent reach out to see if I could do some more stuff. So that's how that Hornets thing came.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I remember that was several years ago. It might have been 2015 or 2016.
That was 2016.
2016. And I remember what was great about you, and there's a few other athletes that come to mind, was that you were so unafraid to ask questions. Mm-hmm. And you were humble in that sense, because there are some guys and gals that might come onto the set and think like, "Oh, I'm blank, and I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to ask any questions." But you approached it as if it were a craft, and you wanted to work on it.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that about you.
Yeah. At that time, I was Gerald Henderson, who was like a really good basketball player at the time, right? I wasn't a really good color analyst. So like I can humble myself in that way, knowing that, okay, would you think you'd be really good at this if you haven't put any time and effort into it? Just like anything else you would be good at, you put time and effort into it. So, and the way that you get better is by asking questions. To me, watching other people, paying attention to other people who are good at it, and just taking it all in. And then you see how good you are from there. You can't go in like, "Oh, I'm just nice out of nowhere." Not many people in the world are like that. So
TV will keep you real humble.
Oh, yeah.
The moment you think you're doing well, it's so similar to sports.
It's just like anything else. The
rug is going to be pulled right underneath you.
And it's like playing a game, because especially live TV, because somebody asks you a question you're not prepared for, or the camera comes back to you, or you got 20 seconds to fill. Like, what are you going to say?
Yeah.
Right. And it's harder for you because you're actually like shaping the show, because you're the host. So, I got more respect for you than for me. I can tell you, "Yo, don't ask me this." You know what I'm saying? I don't know anything about this. So,
is there anything I'm not supposed to ask you today?
No.
Okay.
I'm an open book today.
Open book today?
Right.
Were you an open book a year ago?
Probably not. I mean, I'm never a fully open book. There's things I'm just not going to talk about.
Like what?
But that was a trap.
No, I think so. I was thinking about our interactions over the years. So that was our first time working with each other. And then you had your charity golf event in Pennsylvania. That was in 2017. Mm-hmm. So this is, I don't think you know the timeline in terms of like what happened to me as well. So that next year, you asked me to MC your charity golf event in Pennsylvania, which was so much fun. That was in July. Little did you know that April of 2017 was your last NBA game. Mm-hmm. Did you know you didn't know then, right? Because you had your Achilles, hurt your Achilles after that.
Well, I played my last game with Philly in April, and that whole season was really rough because I had my hip surgery. No, let me start that over. I'm trying to remember.
No, you had your hip surgery. So April 12th, if I'm getting the timeline right,
Mm-hmm.
you had your last NBA game.
Mm-hmm.
You had all your hip issues.
2017.
Yep. So that same month, we were both engaged at that time. When did you get engaged? Because you were engaged.
Soon after that, I got engaged.
Because by the time I saw you at your golf
tournament, I was engaged.
I had just gotten married. You had just gotten engaged.
Mm-hmm.
That April, you had your last NBA game.
Mm-hmm.
I had my last Sports Center.
Mm-hmm.
I got laid off from ESPN.
Yeah.
And then we had your charity golf event in July, and then I did my whole tennis comeback thing. And then
I had hip surgery.
You had hip surgery.
Yeah.
A couple days after the charity golf event.
I did. It was all, I knew beforehand that was happening.
So you had hip surgery at HSS in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I had shoulder surgery at HSS in New York in December.
Yeah.
But I remember asking you had asked me to MC your golf event. I don't know if you remember this, but after I got laid off,
mm-hmm.
I reached out to you and I was like, hey, just want to let you know I got laid off at ESPN. Do you still want me to MC your event?
I remember that.
Do you remember
I remember that. I remember looking at the text message like, oh, no. Come on now. What kind of person do you think I am?
You're like, I was like, yeah, no, you're not.
Oh, I didn't know that. So we're going to have to switch you out. What kind of person do you think I am?
I was laughing at that, but I was dissecting the timeline,
mm-hmm.
and there's so much crossover.
Yeah.
Like my broadcasting career was not necessarily coming to an end, but that was like a major chapter closing for one reason or another. And it was a chapter that I haven't really talked about publicly, but it was, I felt like I had set out a goal and I was eventually, and I had achieved that goal of wanting to be at ESPN, and I was looking for the next step, but
mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to close it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So the universe or God, whatever you believe in, kind of made it for me. But then that's when your career also at that point closed a bit too.
Yep. At that time, at the end of that season, I had a small inkling that it could be over, because even before then, just dealing with the hip pain and knowing that, I'm talking to all the doctors, all the right doctors. I'm talking to all the best PTs, and that's what you get when you're in the NBA. Like you're going to get all the right information. The team's going to make sure you're getting all the right information. And there's not great information. There's not great news for hips.
Yeah.
For hip surgery, like there's not great stories. The hip wears down, and if you want to continue to play the sport, you're going to have, without getting surgery, you're going to have to put yourself through a rigorous physical therapy that you got to stay consistent with. You got to change some biological things with your body in terms of how you move and stuff to take pressure off of your hip joint, be using all your muscles right. You have to become a extremely efficient athlete. And so I spent tons of time doing that throughout the years, which really gave me a longer career than I should have, because I was in a lot of pain with my hips. So after that whole season, and I love Brett Brown to this day, Sixers head coach, because I'm a guy, I signed with the Sixers as a veteran leader, and was put there for my basketball skills, but also to kind of show these guys who had, to that point, they're doing really well now, but to that point were a joke of the league. They weren't doing really well, didn't have a great culture. And he was trying to continue to build and grow the culture. So, he saw me as a guy that was a good professional, do things the right way, and was going to be able to show some of the younger players those attributes. So, I thank him, because I'm not a guy that likes to miss games. Throughout my whole career, I want to play. It's my job. I've always had that kind of mindset. But
I think I saw some crazy stat that even though despite your 6 surgeries since 2008, you've never missed more than 10 games in 4 consecutive seasons or something like that.
I love to play. Even through pain, I just think that's part of the sport. You're gonna have to play through some injuries. It's a physical sport, and then I get that a lot from Duke. And
do you get that from Duke, or do you think it started when you were young?
Probably younger. I mean, my dad is a tough cat. He's always instilled toughness in me, given me difficult challenges to do, working out, or has always played me with older kids. So, he let me see some failure, let me get pushed around a bit, to kind of instill that in me. But yeah, I mean, and then at Duke, I mean, that's kind of where you become a man there, just with the kind of leadership that Coach K has, and discipline and expectations that they have for you. So
that's where you're forced to grow up.
Yeah, you're forced to.
Expectation is huge.
Yeah, and college. I mean, and you probably saw it in tennis in college, the level of work and discipline you have that they expect every day is, something that you start to expect and start to do. So, all that and, to kind of all together brought me to a point with the Sixers where I was, didn't want to miss games, but he actually forced me to miss games,
Really?
Because he saw the kind of pain that I was playing in every day, working with the PTs, trying to get myself ready to play. I couldn't even go through a whole shoot around because in the morning time, would be where it's just stiffest, my hip.
And this is the 2017-18 season.
This is
2016-17.
2016-17. So I was so I couldn't even get through a full shoot around. So, he would see that, and I ended up playing a bunch of games, but, he forced me to sit out because also he wanted some of the young guys to play. We weren't going to make the playoffs, but he wanted them to get some experience. But then, also just kind of saying, look, you've done your job this year. Just sit down for a second, So
you're that athlete where you were going to keep going until somebody told you to stop.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of those athletes are the type that it's almost a pain tolerance to a fault. Right. I think to be an elite athlete, you have to have a high pain tolerance.
Oh, yeah.
Not necessarily having to push through injury pain, but you have to be comfortable with discomfort, especially when you're doing conditioning and endurance and discomfort with nerves and everything.
Yep.
But at what point did you realize, okay, this could be the end?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose it was a number of instances with you because you've been battling injuries for so long.
I had a teammate, Tiago Splitter, who played with us maybe the last fourth of the season, and he had a resurfacing procedure done where it's not a hip replacement, but he was getting the same pain that I was getting, and he got it's like a metal implant you get put on top of your femur. And then on top of your hip side, they give you a little coat of metal.
And do you replace the ball of the...
Yep, the ball's cut off.
Okay.
And now they put basically a cap with a stick into your femur.
So they don't replace it with a ball, so how does it maneuver?
So basically, it's imagine a little metal piece this, that this stick is into your femur.
Okay.
So that now it just sits in there just like that.
Okay.
And then on your hip side, right, they have some metal. So now these just kind of flow around just like that.
Okay. And Andy Murray had that same surgery.
I believe he had it too. We had the same doctor.
Oh.
Dr. Edwin Sue at Hospital Special Surgery. He actually tried to connect us. We never got connected, but I saw Tiago Splitter had the procedure done, and I'm looking at him for 2 months. I'm like, that's going to be me in a year. I was like, that is the only way. Because I can't. I'd quit before I play another season in this kind of pain. Taking Advil, IV 800 milligram ibuprofen.
Sounds like Advil. Well, you're taking Advil. Advil's not going to do anything.
Well, yeah.
You got to be taking one of those monster ibuprofen pills.
If you take 4 of them, it's 800 milligrams.
Oh
right?
my gosh, yeah.
So I'm like I'd quit before I do this like again. But so then very much season went by and met with some more doctors, and the prognosis was that, look, if you want to continue to play or play out of pain, then you're going to have to get this resurfacing procedure. And I was like, I could have told you that 6 months ago.
I know. Is that funny? When I feel like most athletes, 90% of athletes know when they need surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to the doctor. That was after your charity event. I think I came back to New York, and it was in September, and I could tell my shoulder. And I had already had 3 surgeries. I was in college, so long time ago, 15 years ago. But I was like, I'm going to have surgery. I did something to it. But doctors have to go through the process of the checkup and give it 2 weeks and go to physical therapy and do the whole 5 to 6 week physical therapy.
Because they don't know how you feel.
No, but I was like, come on. But Dr. Dines at HSS did Andy Murray and Marty Fish and Isner and a ton of, like, his dad works with the Giants. I was like, you all know I need surgery. Like, let's just, gave me a couple cortisone shots. And then later I found out that my PT, who works with Ndamukong Suh and is also the trainer for the Canadian basketball team, so he knows.
Right.
He's like, oh yeah, I knew you tore your shoulder.
Right.
Like, well, why didn't you say something? He's like, well, I didn't want to upset you. I'm like, we all knew. She might as well have just done it earlier.
Yeah.
But
hey, I want to see if you can take some photos of us.
you know what? I was just thinking that, but I didn't want to interrupt the conversation.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
I'm so glad you did. Yeah. Or you can take it, Justin, and let's do it.
If it closes on you, man, the code is 432212.
Oh my God! Did you just say that on air?
I'll change it. I change it like every couple of weeks.
Holy cow! All right. You are an open book. I'm going to bleep that out. Yeah.
Throughout it, or just snack a couple and give your phone back.
Just
take some. Just take a bunch. Take a bunch, like close up.
You're editing that out, right?
Of course we are. Yeah. until it airs in January. So yeah, as we're taking photos. But you said, I'm going to quit before I had that surgery again, but you ended up having the surgery.
Well, I said I'm going to quit before.
Oh, you played through that pain.
Right. It was over. I said, there's no way. So I had the surgery and immediately felt better. You get this surgery is pretty involved. Like, I have a gash on my buttocks, like this long. Like, it's a pretty intense surgery. So you got to heal from the scar, but right away they want you to start walking on it. You have fixed parts in there. So, I came back, I started working out, I felt completely normal. I was out of pain. I had felt stronger than I had in years.
Really?
Right? Running, jumping after, 6-8 months or so.
And at what point is this? When did you start feeling better than ever? 6 to 8 months after surgery? How long?
So really it was probably less than a year, because then I was really like actually playing and, repeat after a few months, like playing and really got like my bounce back, my lateral movement, like my recovery, all that stuff had gotten so much better. And, I had a few workouts. I was working out with the Raptors for a week out in LA. I went with the Spurs for a week, which went really well. And then I went out to Golden State for probably about a week. I was there. I was only there for 3 days. I was supposed to be there a week or so.
And when was this?
This was probably the mid-September. It was 2 weeks before training camp.
Okay, September 2018.
Yep.
So it was a little over a year after your hip surgery at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you said in that article that you had even skipped your honeymoon.
Yes.
Because you were around the clock training.
Yep.
And at that point, you thought you were good to go.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't plan it because around that time I knew I'd have to work out for some teams, or I would have to be preparing to work out. So I can't go to Honolulu, sweetie.
You could have gone someplace like in the Caribbean, so it would be closer.
Right. But at the same time, I don't know what gyms are there. I got all my trainers here. Like, this is one time in life that we'd be able to do this. I understand like a honeymoon's like kind of a one-time thing, but you can always do a honeymoon.
I am of that mindset, but
right.
Shout out to your wife.
Yeah, she was a soldier for that one, which we did end up going on a honeymoon a year later. But, we didn't do that, and I stayed and I worked out and I trained, and it was good. And then I went to Golden State, and I was like my third day there, and just a routine play. I was at the top of the key, going to make a cut down the middle of the lane, and just took a step, and it just like everyone describes it, you feel like somebody like either kicked you or like jumped on your back or whatever, and you feel like a little bit of pain, but I didn't really feel it until I kind of looked back to see who was there. Nobody was there except the other goal, and then I looked down and like I could feel pain, and my foot was there. Usually, when anything happens to your foot as a basketball player, you feel like you rolled your ankle. Like that's always been my experience. And then I tried to move it. I couldn't move it at all. And I knew immediately.
Which side is it?
Left foot.
Left foot.
Yeah, right there. It's actually a pretty good scar. Like a lot of guys, it's a little ashy right now. A lot of guys get scars from here. Like that's kind of like the old school.
I was going to say, that's actually quite.
Even
short,
within
almost.
a couple years, like my buddy just got his done a year ago, and his scar is this big. Different doctors do it differently, but it's popped right in half.
So you felt that you heard the snap, but you almost didn't.
Well, it was almost like my foot came unbuckled. Like that's kind of really how it felt. It was just like
Was there wasn't a ton of pain, because I feel like the body is also protective in that sense, where your body will go into shock.
Yeah.
For the purposes of protecting you from that pain, but then as time will settle in, then you will probably begin to feel the pain.
Oh yeah, I felt pain, but it was more like emotional pain, like because the second it happened, because I was just talking to my dad the night before about like possibilities of where I was going to play, and like was really happy. It was like crazy, and then when it happened, because when I got the hip surgery, I said, okay, this is going to be my last go around. Like I'm going to try this one more time. And so when it happened and I actually realized what had happened, first thing that came out of my mouth, I was like, oh, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. I knew it right away.
Did you say that out loud?
Oh, yeah.
How long after the injury happened did you say that out loud? Was it within minutes, or are you talking like 30
Oh,
minutes?
this is within seconds.
Are you serious?
Oh, I'm on the ground, because your tendon's not there. Your tendon connects your calf to everything in your foot. So like when I couldn't move it, right? And I've heard all the Achilles surgeries with playing basketball, but I couldn't move it. So like immediately, like you just kind of turn over. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. And then this is before the trainers got there, because I was just like, you just know it. Like I'm falling apart, like clearly.
Yeah, you literally like fell apart
Right.
that day. I mean, your body over time has been falling apart. But I think that coming into today, I would have thought that your process towards retirement would have been a gradual one,
Mm-hmm.
and you were prepared for it, because when you have that many surgeries and injuries over time,
Mm-hmm.
you've been doing it for like 7-8 years, so you're
Right.
10 years. So you're like, okay, the end is eventually coming,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just kind of on your 7th life.
Right.
But it's weird to hear how sudden it happened, especially with the conversation that you had with your dad the night before.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it was extremely unexpected.
Yeah, it was unexpected because of the way that I felt, right? And it's just like you just never know what mechanically is going wrong with your body. Like I had the day before that, I had a workout that I hadn't played basketball like that in years. Like I was flying all over the place. I was in great shape. I was I made like 10 threes in like our pickup games. Like I just, I was playing unbelievable. We had started to do like small contract talks, like,
oh my gosh.
and so, but then, the very next day that happened. So it's like, you never know. But that just goes in my head, just like, it goes to show you, like, all these plans that I had set, as much as I saw things a certain way, like, it just wasn't written like that. But after I did, well, listen to this. So after I got the surgery, or after I did the injury, you get the MRI or whatever, and then I got a plane back to Charlotte immediately because I was all the way on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just wanted to be around my family and just like, I didn't feel, I wasn't in a great place. So I get on a plane like maybe 5-6 hours later, right? Fall asleep, right? I got my foot just sitting there dangling. Wake up in Charlotte, and then I couldn't see the doctor for a couple of days because it was the weekend. I see I think it was Dr. Nunley at Duke. And he says, so what's happened here between your surgery or between your injury and now? Like, what have you been doing? Like, I'm like, absolutely nothing. He's like, how did you get back here? I'm like, I took a plane. He's like, okay. He's like, I want to let you know, man, that you're lucky to be alive right now. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, he's like, 1 out of 3 people that get this injury within a couple of days, if they get blood clots in their foot, right? And so he's like, it's almost a miracle that a couple hours after you had the surgery that you flew from California to Charlotte and you fell asleep.
Altitude,
oh yeah, he's like,
blood clots.
Oh my gosh, he's like, because your blood gets thin as you get in altitude, it gets thinner.
33% of people.
Right. He's like 30. Right. He's like 30 people. Like, it just happens because they don't either keep it up or whatever reasons. He's like, for you to have gotten on the plane, it's like you're kind of crazy for that, but you're lucky. Gosh. And I was like, I fell asleep. Like I just wanted to get home. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. So
did that help? What was the toughest? And I want to dive into this because I think it's so important, this topic, for the purpose of helping and healing other athletes that go through this. There's a ton of athletes that obviously didn't play the level that you did, but it happens to them in college. It happens to them before they get drafted. It happens to them in high school. And when it's so sudden, I think it's more difficult to deal with because you're not prepared for it and you just didn't see the moment coming. So when you're going through all of this, what was your rock bottom in coming to grips of what this injury was and what that meant for your career? Do you remember a rock bottom?
Well, even after I had the surgery and was making the recovery, which that Achilles surgery is tough because you got to do the boot and the scooter and the crutches and all that stuff. But, I've had 3 hip surgeries, so I'm used to the process of therapy. And, but I'd say, I still had this like small glimmer of just like, maybe I could still do it, because, once you start back walking and then you start doing athletic things and now you're seeing your body back in that kind of form, I was like, okay, well, shoot, I'd be crazy, but like maybe I can still do it.
So
but,
even after the injury, you said that's a wrap, but then you went back over for.
I'd be like 50% of the day. I'd be like, oh man, this might be all right. Then the other 50, I'd be like, no, it's a wrap. Like just
because you don't know,
right?
Yeah,
and because you don't want it to be over, so you don't want to say that, and you're conditioned all the time to be like, okay, I'm training.
And saying it out loud brings anything. It makes it more real. Which is why when you said, well, Prim, I'm real tired. When you said it just minutes into our interview, I was like, oh,
yeah. No, really.
Ish, like okay, so he's at that point.
Oh yeah.
So what was that moment?
So the moment, I'll tell you, it's kind of funny actually. So, I worked a lot here with Architect Sports. I mean, I had a bunch of injuries, and I've most of the time worked with them on them. And the day, there's like one day we started running on the treadmill, and they're like shooting the speed up and the incline up, and I just was like, I ran like a couple of them, or I might have finished the whole thing. And afterwards, I just looked at my PT. I was like, I don't want to do this no more, man. Just straight up, like no like sob story. I was just like, man, I'm good. I had enough.
Did you have tears? Did you have?
No, it was almost like a clarity moment. It was just like, because nobody really wants to run on the treadmill. Like, who really wants to do that? You do it because, especially as an athlete, because you know that this is pushing you and getting you in condition to where you're trying to be, right? It's all going to help your performance. So, there was that level, okay, this is why you're doing it, but at the same time, it's not guaranteed. Like, it's a different situation I've ever been in. Like, I always had a contract I knew I was going to be able to get, regardless of how much it was or where it was. I probably was going to be on somebody's team, right? I could add value to a team. I'm 2 years out now. I'm 30, 31, whatever it was. Stuff's not like it was. And even with that, most younger me would have been like, all right, good. Like that now it's time to get hungry and go get that. Mm-hmm. At 30, I didn't have the same desire to go do it like I would have when I was younger. I just didn't have it. And, not because, I accomplished so much or made so much money. But it just wasn't there. Like I had gone through so many therapy sessions, rehab, just time. And the thing that wears on you is that you have to do so much to prepare yourself to get on the court before you actually even play, right? So you're working so much on your body to just throw yourself out there without spending as much time that you need on your game. Mm-hmm. Right. And so the product, even if I got myself back, the product wasn't going to be something that I was going to be satisfied with. Like, I'm a guy, you're going to grind it out. Just like if I was out on the golf course, I wouldn't expect myself to play well if I didn't practice. Like I felt which I know I need. I know the certain amount of knowledge though. Oh yeah.
You had that long-term vision. And probably that long-term vision was instilled for you when you were a kid from both of your parents, and also your dad being an NBA player. And
he's my dad's got a pretty amazing story for how he became a 3-time NBA champion from where he grew up in Richmond, Virginia. But there's one thing my dad's ever taught me to do is how to work. Like even at 63, like He's always got to be doing something. Like it's just like, yo, man, like it's all right. You don't gotta like break every leaf. Like you don't gotta. The whole house doesn't have to be like. We don't have to always have a job to do. Like, but that's how he kind of operates. He's just, So like when I was younger, like he taught me how to work, especially when I really committed to basketball. He taught me like, okay, what's your plan here? He'd get the little month planner out.
Why is that like a dad thing?
Because
love to draw it out and do demos and make you sit down through it. God, they drive me nuts.
I don't know why. I'm thankful for it though.
I am too.
Because we're gonna condition, right? If that's running, there's weightlifting, there's shooting and working out. There's playing, right? This is all basketball stuff. So, if we said we wanted to do this however many times a week, okay, so we got our schedule. This is old school.
How old are you at this point when you're doing this?
15, 16.
Okay, so this is after you had decided basketball is my thing.
Right, because
You wasn't doing this at 7 years old.
No, because I was, when I was about 10, 11 years old, I started really playing golf and really got good at that. So like by 14, I was a scratch golfer, right? So playing junior tournaments. And so then I had to make that decision, which one did I want to do? And I picked basketball because, it was my first love. I knew I was an athletic kid, even at 14, 15, was dunking the basketball and stuff. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And I said I could always play golf at the point I'm at now, right, when I'm done.
What Gerald said about coming back from an injury time and time and time again and having to do so much just to get back on the court, not even to play or compete, but just to even practice, it really resonated with me, especially as someone who went through 4 operations over the course of my tennis career, albeit a much less illustrious athletic career compared to Gerald. But the point is that a lot of these athletes, especially the ones that reach the elite or pro level, go through so much and put their minds and their bodies on the line all day, every day. And they have to do that to achieve the things that they do. And so we might begin to understand how injuries can take its toll on one's performance and even their motivation just to keep playing. And when something becomes more painful than it is fun or enjoyable, it's not always easy to keep going. And that's when athletes have to make a decision about what's right for themselves, what's right for their bodies, and what's right for their families. Really hope you enjoyed part 1 with Gerald. Stay tuned for part 2 next week. The next chapter with Prim Siripipat is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.